5. Today we're going to be talking about fractions, decimals, and percents. So we're going to be going back and forth. So from fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, fractions to percents, percents to fractions, and so on. So let's go ahead and first remind ourselves on how to go from a percent to a fraction. So first of all, you have your percent, 45% in this example. Anytime you have a percent, you put that over 100 and then you simplify. Because anytime you're saying 45%, it's 45 out of 100. So we have 45 out of 100, and then we simplified it down to 9 over 20. Okay? Now, if we're going to be going from a fraction to a percent, then that means we are going to go ahead and take the fraction form and make it into a percent. By, first of all, one way you can do it is if the denominator can go into 100, go ahead and change it to 100. So, and then you'll do the same to the numerator, and then you can make that as a percent. So for example, if we had 3 over 10, I know that 10 can go in 100 10 times. So 10 times 10 is going to give us 100. And then I'm also going to have to do the numerator times 10 to keep it balanced. So 3 times 10 gives me 30. So once I have 30 over 100, my percent is just 30%. Okay? But there are some times when the denominator cannot go into 100. So what do you do then? So basically you just divide the numerator by the denominator, so 2 divided by 3, and you're going to get 0.6 repeating, and then you're going to go ahead and move your decimal 2 places to the right. So in this case we did 2 divided by 3 and got 0.6 repeating, and then we took our decimal, moved it 2 places to the right, and then we rounded to 66.7%. Okay? Now how about when we go from percents to decimals? So we take our percent, we take our decimal place, which in this case, since you don't see a decimal place, it's always automatically at the end. So then we move our decimal 2 places to the left, and then it'll be 0.28 or 28 hundredths. And now the way that you know which direction to move your decimal place is if you do not want it to be a percent, move it away from the percent sign. And we're always moving 2 times because anytime we're talking about percents, we're talking about out of 100. And 100 means you're moving 2 decimal place values. But if you're going to be going from decimals to a percent, you're going to take your decimal and you're going to be moving 2 places towards the percent sign because you want it to be a percent. So you're going to take your decimal place, move it 2 places to the right, and then you'll have your percent. All right, let's go ahead and do some practice problems going back and forth. Let's look at example number 1. We have 120%, and we're going to change that to a fraction. So anytime you have your percent, you put it over 100. So in this case, we have 120 over 100, and now we just need to go ahead and simplify. So first of all, I see zeros at the end, so by crossing off those zeros, I'm dividing a 10 out of both. So now I have 12 over 10, and I can still divide out. Let's go ahead and divide by 2. Divide by 2. We're going to have 6 over 5, or 1 1/5. Either way you want to write it, it's okay. As long as it's simplified. Number 2, we're going to go ahead and take 0.5% and make it a fraction. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and put 0.5 over 100. However, you'll notice that this is still a decimal. Now, how do we get it out of a decimal? We're going to have to multiply by 10, because if I multiply by 10, it's going to move my decimal place 1 time. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 10. So now I have 5 over 1,000. Now all we have to do is simplify. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by 5. Divide by 5. So if you divide 1,000 divided by 5, 5 goes into 10 2 times, and then that's going to be 10, subtract 0, and it's going to go in 0, 0. So we're going to have 1 over 200. That is our simplified fraction. All right, let's look at, we're going to change this to a fraction as well. All right, so let's go ahead and change this percent to a fraction. So first of all, we have 83 1/3%. So we know we're going to have to do something special because we see a fraction in here. But let's go ahead and first write 83 1/3 over 100, because that's how the first step of changing it from a percent to out of a percent is by putting it over 100. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this a little bit. I'm going to rewrite it as 83 1/3 divided by 100. Because if you write it like that, that's exactly what this says, but we're going to start manipulating our equation a little bit to make it work for us. So now I see a mixed number divided by a whole number. So in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and flip this second fraction and change it to multiplication. So instead of dividing by 100, I'm going to be multiplying by 1 over 100. Now I'm going to go ahead and look at this number. In order to multiply straight across, I'm going to change this to an improper fraction so that we can just multiply our numerators and multiply our denominators. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to a mixed number. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 times 83. So I'm going to do my work to the side. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 3 times 8 gives me 24. So I got 249, and then we're going to add 1, so 250 over 3. So I have 250 over 3. So now I'm going to go ahead and cross cancel a little bit. So I can cross cancel this 0, take those off. And now I can also divide by 5. So if I did 25 divided by 5, I'm going to get 5. If I did 10 divided by 5, I'm going to be left with 2. So now we have it all simplified. So let's go ahead and multiply across. So 5 times 1 gives you 5. 3 times 2 gives you 6. So 5, 6 is our simplified fraction after all those steps. So just to recap what we did, we put this whole number with our fraction or our mixed number as a percent. We put it over 100. Then we rewrote it by writing 83 1/3 divided by 100. We flipped our fraction and multiplied. And we also changed this to an improper fraction. We cross-canceled and then we multiplied across. Alright, so number 4. We have this fraction, 9/4, and we're going to go ahead and make it a percent. So the first thing, if my denominator can go into 100, I'm going to use that. So 4 times what is going to give me 100? So I'm going to go ahead and do 9 over 4. I'm going to multiply by 25, multiply by 25. So 4 times 25 is going to give me 100. And now let's go ahead and do 25 times 9 to the side. 9 times 5 gives you 45. 9 times 2 gives you 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we have 225 over 100, which means it's 225%. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the next example. We have 3 over 500 is what percent? So in this case, I see that 500 can't go into 100 because you would have to actually reduce it a little bit in order to do that. But our numerator is prime, and so we can't divide out any of that there. So what we're going to do is instead of trying to get the denominator equal to 100, we're going to divide our numerator by our denominator and then move our decimal place. So basically what I'm doing is changing this fraction to a decimal and then from a decimal to a percent. So we're doing step at a time. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead and do 3 divided by 500. So 500 does not go into 3. We're going to have to be adding on some decimal place values. 500 does not go into 30. 500 does not go into 300. But it can go into 3,000. It goes perfectly 6 times. So we have our decimal is now 0.006. So now that we have our decimal, we can go ahead and change it to a percent by moving our decimal place 2 places to the right. So we're moving it 2 places to the right. So basically our decimal is 0.6%. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 6. We have 15 over 7, and we're going to be changing that to a percent. So the first thing you want to look at is, can the denominator go into 100? And in this case, that is no. So we can't get the denominator to be 100, so we're going to go ahead and do the same process we did here by dividing, and then we're going to move our decimal place. So we're taking our fraction, changing it to a percent, and then changing it to a decimal, then a percent. So let's go ahead and do 15 divided by 7. So 7 goes into 15, closest is 2 times, so we're going to get 14. Subtracting, get a 1. Bring down our 0. And 7 goes into 10 about 1 time, so we're going to have 10 minus 7 get 3. Bring down our 0. 7 goes into 30. It goes in about 4 times, and that's going to give us 28. Subtract, we're going to get 2. Bring down our 0. Etc. So it's going to keep going for a while. So we know that we're going to be estimating this fraction. But I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time. So 7 goes into 21. It goes in about, or 20, it goes in about 2 times. You're going to get 14. Subtract, and you're going to get 6. So let's go ahead and take this decimal as it is right now, and we'll just estimate it because we won't need that many decimal places anyways. So we're going to take 2.1402. We're going to go ahead and change that to a percent. So we're going to take our decimal place, move it 2 places to the right. So we have 214.2%. All Now let's go ahead, and these are actually going to go pretty quickly because when you're going from a decimal to a percent and vice versa, all you're doing is moving a decimal 2 places. You just got to know which direction to go. Now remember, as I said before, if you're going to make it a percent, move it 2 places towards the percent sign. If you want it to be a decimal, move it 2 places away from the percent sign. So let's go ahead and change 8% to a decimal. So we have 8, and we're going to go ahead and move our decimal 2 places to the left, and we're going to have 0.08. That will be our decimal. Now 0.5%, we're going to go ahead and take 0.5, move it 2 places away from the decimal, and we're going to have 0.005. That is our decimal. Number 9, we're going to go ahead and take this decimal and make it a percent. So in order to make it a percent, you want to move 2 places towards the percent sign. So we have 0.09. We're going to move it 2 places to the right. So now we have 9%. And our last one, we have 0.007%. So we're going to take 0.007, move our decimal 2 places to the right, and we're going to have 0.7%. Alright, as always, go ahead and rewatch the video if any of this stumped you a little bit. You can also go back in your textbook and look at examples that have already been done for you. And as always, bring questions to class. Now let's go ahead and do some on your own questions. Alright, you have a few problems to do for me. Number 1, you're going to take 60% and change it to both a fraction and a decimal. Number 2, you're going to take 20.5% and make it a fraction and a decimal. Number 3, you're going to take the fraction 27/40 and make it a percent. And number 4, you're going to take 0.97 and you're going to change that decimal to a percent. Good luck. We'll see what you get tomorrow.